Hi, welcome to With Bowl and Spoon. We are here today with a special guest, Erika, co-owner of The Third Space.
Hi.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Where do I start? Who am I? I don't know where to start.
I guess I didn't prepare you for that question. Sorry. So The Third Space.
Yes.
Is talk about that. What is that?
Okay, so Third Space is going to be a bakery as well as a teaching kitchen, and we are cooperatively owned, a worker-owned cooperative. There's lots of different types of cooperatives, and I think it's confusing to people, and a lot of people, their first question is, are you an incubator kitchen? Are you three businesses going in and sharing it? And that's not what it is. It's one business, and our goal and our dream is to have our employees who come in and work for us will want to invest in the business and become worker owners. And so it's a more diplomatic, equitable way of running a food business, which is, as we know, and as COVID taught us, not the best and most equitable business out there. And so we're trying to create a space where people feel a sense of ownership. They have a voice in the business. They are invested in the business. And then in the long run, that's going to translate to better service and a better business for the community. And we want to be very much community engaged. And that's where our teaching classes and workshops are going to come into place. And we'd like to host events and be able to promote and support other small locally owned businesses in the process.
So you're coming at this as one of three core co-owners, mm-hmm. and you had a bakery business mm-hmm. that I guess you're dissolving.
Yes. I pretty much dissolved it. It's still a little, technically legally running, but I haven't been taking any orders. That business was Le Beau Gâteau, and that's a business I started almost, 15 years ago when I lived in Boston. And that iteration of it was a custom cakes, mostly wedding cakes business. And so it was very much working with clients and coming up with these crazy cakes, and every cake was totally different. But it was really fun, and it allowed me to be extremely creative. And also being in Boston, I could definitely charge accordingly. And when I moved to Pittsburgh, I was working at home for a really long time, and I got to the point where I was ready to do something different. And I started up the business again, in the hopes of getting out of the house and working with other people. And so I realized, though, that I couldn't, and I didn't really want to, wedding cakes are very stressful. And I think I was in a different space in my life. I'd had kids, and I don't know, I just didn't have the focus and attention I could give to stuff that was that. So I wanted to do more rustic pastries. I still did a lot of cakes, but it's interesting because I've definitely turned away from that very laborious, fine-tuned detail, and now I'm just more into I just want to make something that tastes really, really good, and I want to keep it really simple, and I want it to be really organic, and and I did the Maker in Residence program at Chatham through their craft program, and I started incorporating local whole grains into as much as not as much into the cakes, but definitely into my pastries, and that's been really cool.
That's how you met one of your partners.
Yes, Chloe Newman. Yep.
And Beth is associated with Chatham too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Beth and I met in a slightly different way.
Okay.
But yes, we all have the Chatham connection, which is pretty cool.
You want to talk about how you and Beth met?
Yeah, I am part of a Facebook food group called Eat, Share, Eat. That was started by another local woman, Sherry Flick. I had a neighbor who got me into that group years ago. And, people just cook at home. They cook anything and make cocktails and just share it. It's a very fun and low-key food and cooking group. So a few people in that group started a cookbook club here in Pittsburgh. And so I was kind of that's cool. And they would just invite anybody who was local. And then they did the book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat? And I was I want to do that book. That sounds great. And I was really just trying to meet somebody, I was trying to get out of the house. I only knew other parents. And I was I need to meet, my food people. So I showed up, Beth was hosting, and she lived pretty far out. I just drove 45 minutes, and I showed up at this person's house who I've never met. And that's how we met. And then she knew people who I worked with at Cook's Country Magazine. And she had been, because she's a food tour guide, and she had toured them around. So immediately we had connections. It was crazy. But that's how we met and became friends, and then started teaching a cooking camp together. So yeah, I knew that we worked really well together, especially under pressure.
That is definitely a test of friendship.
Right. Yeah.
To be under pressure and cook under
right.
pressure.
Teaching teenagers how to use knives is definitely high pressure. I've learned a lot of things. Yeah.
So how, or maybe I want to say why, did you get into the wedding cake business?
I think I had a background making cakes and wedding cakes. I worked, so I did go to culinary school, and once I did the full like chef's program, I went to the Cambridge Culinary, what is it, Cambridge Culinary Institute? Is that what it's called? I can't even remember. But anyway, it's in Cambridge, Mass. And
a long time ago.
And they do like a 10-month intensive kind of program, which was great because I could like still work and do everything. Because I went like in my late 20s, you know. But right away I was like, oh yeah, I'm a baker. Yeah, I'm a baker. So I started working in bakeries, doing bread production. I moved out to California and I was working in this bakery called La Farine, and they were in Oakland. And I started off in breads, but I immediately was like, I want to be like, they had a wonderful woman who did cakes. So I ended up getting to go under her wing, and she taught me all, you know, and most of the recipes that I use are actually from that bakery because they're just very European. It was like a French Swiss bakery, but yeah, those recipes, I don't know how many years old they are. And I of course copied them all down and took them with me. And so I had that background.
With their blessing, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, but it was different then, too. Like, that was sort of like, I did ask, but, like, that was the assumption. It was like, you worked for not very much money and got training, and then you took with you what you learned, and then, you know, I've learned things I've been very fortunate to work under amazing people, but you take a little bit from each person, and then I think that's how you become, you know, you have your own personality as a chef, you know, or a baker or whatever. So, yeah, I had the background in cakes, and I also liked the creative element because I think when I went to culinary school, I was trying to decide, I always wanted to be an artist, like since I was a little kid. And so I was like, I got to decide, do I want to go into art school or do I want to go into culinary school? Because I was waiting tables and bartending, and I was like, it's one or the other. And it was a really hard decision to make, but I think in the end, I chose culinary because I didn't want to wait tables for the rest of my life. And I think I was really cognizant of how difficult it is as an artist to make a living. And I sometimes regret that decision because I wonder, like, well, what if I had tried it, you know? But I do think that, you know, baking is a creative form. I mean, cooking as well. Like, it is a creative art form. And so I think as long as I have that outlet, you know, I've been pretty happy. And I love food and I love eating. And I really love the food community, the restaurant atmosphere. Like, I love that energy. I've always thrived on it. So I'm opening a bakery, which is crazy at my age.
But yeah, that's your co-owner has said the same thing.
Yeah. I'm going to be, God, am I going to be 52 this year? Yeah. So, but you know, it's like now or never, right? Like if you don't try it. And I'm
absolutely
as my kids have gotten older, I'm like very ready to get back career focused and I'm very happy when I'm working. So,
what kind of art did you do?
Well, I mean, growing up, I was really into like drawing. I did a lot of charcoal. I've always, you know, again in my 20s. I think my 20s were like very much that like soul searching phase of like I think I really struggled because I had been very academically focused and pushed growing up, and so it was all about my grades. And then I went to college, and then I was like, I did pre-med, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then I just sort of got out of college, and I wasn't ready to take my MCATs. I wasn't prepared. I thought I was going to have a job doing research in Boston, and that fell through. And I had like no plan B. I had no idea even how to put together a resume. Like my parents were getting divorced. I was just kind of like, what do I do? And so I ended up, just because I couldn't stay at home, I ended up moving up to New Hampshire where we would spend our summers. I had a bunch of friends, and they were renting a house. So I just moved up there, and I skied, and I, again, worked. That actually was like it's embarrassing, but like one of my first restaurant jobs, my mom said, you can go if you get a job. So I got a job as a hostess at Applebee's just so I could get up there. And, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place in the mountains. And, you know, after a year I was done. I was bored. I was like, okay, moving on. But so yeah, so during like growing up, I had done, and I liked clay. I mean, I really like working with my hands. And then I recently, well, a couple years ago, took a painting class, which is out of my comfort zone. But it was like an acrylic painting class. But I found I really enjoyed the sort of abstract use of that. And I wish I had more time to do stuff like that. I really was into like drawing mostly. And I did a lot of like, so through my 20s, I would take a lot of art classes and do like nude figure drawing. And then I got into photography. And then I was taking classes at the City College of San Francisco because it was so cheap. And I started working in a black and white dark room, developing photos. And I was really into that. But then I was like, oh, well, to make a living, I'll probably have to shoot weddings.
Sports.
Or sports, yeah. That's actually, I started shooting the sports games at my high school, and for the newspaper, the little local paper. But I had a teacher, and that's how it started. And he gave me an enlarger. And my son just took a class at the Pittsburgh Center for the Arts, a developing class. I couldn't believe they still do it, and he loved it. So then, next thing you know, now I have an enlarger again, and we're gonna someday build a dark room in the basement. But I really loved it. But anyway, so I think I really dabbled in all of those things, and then I just kind of was like, I need something that I can earn a living at. Which, ironically, you don't really make a lot of money in the food business, but at that point I was still just working service, and I made a lot of money. It was a nice flexible schedule, and I traveled, and I did all these adventures, and then I moved back to Boston. I was like, I'm gonna make a decision. So that was it.
the short story of how you became a wedding cake baker.
Yeah, I mean, I think my whole life has been a lot of like, so I went to culinary school and I wanted to be a food writer. Because Ruth Reichel was like, I remember just opening up the New York Times. Like, it was Wednesdays, I think, the food section. And I ended up, after I got out of culinary school, like I said, I worked in a few bakeries. And then I was like, I want to work in a restaurant because I found bakeries to be too repetitive. You just make the same thing. And I'm like, I want to change it up. And I was very intimidated just because I had worked in so many restaurants. I knew what kitchens were like. And I was like, I don't want to be in that like male dominate, like just, and the yelling. But I found a great kitchen at Rialto, which recently closed, unfortunately. But they were in the Charles Hotel in Harvard Square. And it was a very high-end restaurant, and it was a female chef. And so I got in there, and I became the pastry chef there. And then I burned out really quickly because, boy, that was like, I was way over my head. But it was really interesting and exciting. But anyway, then I met somebody who was working at Cooks Illustrated. And so they were like, you need to come work at Cooks Illustrated. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready for like 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then I thought, this will be my chance to become a famous food writer. But I learned that I'm not a very good writer, and writing is very difficult for me. And so it became like this sort of struggle constantly. The cooking part, no problem. And then developing recipes. But since then, I've worked for them on and off. I mean, I think since I was there. I was there in-house for about 5 years, and then I started my wedding cake business. The writing for that magazine is extremely formulaic, and there was really no one had a voice, because you had to write the formula. So I think maybe that's part of why I struggled. And then I didn't really have any good, even though my title was associate editor. I mean, really what I did was just develop recipes, and then I would write about them. But I would work under editors, but I didn't get a good editor who was actually teaching me something, like helping me, like this is how you write a good head, and this is how you do this, until like almost before I left. And by then I was really burnt out, and they were bringing in other people who I was like, male people who I thought they're going to get promoted over me. They came with big egos, and I was like, that's not, when I started the company it was 30 people. And, the cooking part, we were like 8 maybe. So it was a tight group. And by the time I left, the company was over 100 people. So it was a very different vibe. And since then, they've just gotten massive and huge. So, I think it's unfortunate. I mean, it would have been nice if I'd had more varied experiences with writing. But I think it is also it's just not my natural forte. Like, it's just, I think I'm a reader and not a writer. And I think that's okay.
And also the visual. Because I mean, I know Cooks Illustrated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of images in the book. Did you do any of the photography for that?
I didn't. Okay. I did work. I was the hand model. That was like one of the first jobs.
Nice.
Is to be the hand model. But I'm very good friends with a photographer that worked there then and is still there. And then also became friends with the illustrator, John Burgoyne, who's amazing. But no, that was not part of the job description, unfortunately.
Well, that sounds like a really cool job, though. What kind of
really cool job
recipes did you create?
I mean, mostly I got baking assignments. I mean, I couldn't really choose my assignment. I I really wanted to do more savory. I learned a ton from the people I worked with. Most people who had previous restaurant experience, right, and who were also burnt out or like later, like starting families and wanting to have, a normal schedule. So I got the chance to work with some really incredibly talented people, and it was amazing. So, yeah, but mostly I did a lot of baking. I think people who aren't bakers don't want to touch baking. I find it really interesting because I don't think it's that hard. I actually think it's easier because if you do follow a recipe, it's very scientific and straightforward, and it's really hard to screw it up. Whereas cooking there's so much more room for, changing and making it yours, or like, I guess you can fix it as you go along. And baking, you can't, like, if you mess up the batter, there's nothing you can do once it goes in the oven.
Scrap. Yeah. I'm appreciating that you have a unique combination of skill with, you went to med school.
Well, I did pre-med. I didn't go to med school.
You did pre-med.
I never made it to med school.
A lot of creative people, their brains would not wrap around pre-med. So you have that really interesting ability to go from the creative to the analytic in a really unique way. And I think that's maybe you don't appreciate that enough in yourself because you seem to be like,
I never thought, well, I mean, maybe that's why I've done so much recipe development, especially with baking, because there's so much science to it. And I do like trying to figure out, like, how can I make this better? Or how I know, like, a lot of times I'll have an image or an idea in my mind of how I want it to turn out, and I have to figure out how to get there. And even with as many years as I've been baking, sometimes it's very challenging. And yeah, so I like that.
You wouldn't do it if it wasn't a challenge.
True.
If it wasn't, because,
Yeah.
I think you get bored easy.
I do. But I really like, and a big part of going ahead with this bakery business is I really need to be working around people again. And when you're recipe developing at home, you're just not. And there's benefits to that, of course. Like, you can work on your own schedule, and you can work in your pajamas, You can work when, there's a lockdown.
You can work naked, frankly.
Right,
I mean, come on.
You could. It could be dangerous.
Depends on what you're making that day.
Depends how hot it is. But yeah, I really, really miss the camaraderie of working with other people, as well as that learning that, when I was working with all those other chefs, like, I just miss, like, learning from them or watching, like, what are you making? That's so cool. Like, I would never have thought of that. That's really interesting. So yeah, I'm excited to get back into that.
That's very cool. So can you remember any of the recipes that you're particularly proud of that you created?
For the magazine? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think the ones I did earlier on when I first got there, I think I worked the hardest on and I spent the most time on. There was a lemon cheesecake. That might have been one of my first that I really liked. There was a lemon layer cake, and I still use that curd recipe for my lemon curd cake. Yeah. There was a lot of them. Honestly, I did like a Szechuan green bean recipe that I was really happy with. That was one of the few savory recipes I got. I did the loaded oatmeal cookies. I also sell now, or I sold with Le Bogato. I'm hoping they'll make it to third space. And that was one of my favorite recipes I developed there. I got in a big fight with Chris Kimball over those cookies.
Awesome.
I know, right?
Dishing the tea. This is good. You're bringing those to your new business, hopefully. So we'll all get to try some of these. This is great. So you're not going to be fighting over mixers. It's a cooperative. It's not a shared kitchen.
No, and we're going to have.
So you're not fighting over mixers.
No,
but you're going to have like a menu that you'll each contribute to.
Yeah, and that's sort of a tricky business because Chloe also has a business that she's still running, Crustworthy, and there is some overlap
for like 3 more weeks.
Yeah. So there's definitely been there's overlap, and so we're having those conversations about and we have, again, like, all 3 of us have our different strengths, and so that's how we're managing the business. Like, Beth is in charge of classes and events, and I'll be doing more like the pastries and the cakes, and then Chloe will be doing breads. So that's going to help. We'll be and then we'll have people that work under us, and but yeah, like we're for the Bloomfield market coming up, we're going to be transitioning from Crustwood to third space. And I was like, what do you want me to make? And what are you not going to make? Like, the whole point of it is for her to not be working as hard. And it's a tricky transition. And I know that when I kind of stopped, because I couldn't manage taking orders and doing all the stuff we need to do to get the bakery ready. So I finally just said I have to stop, which was really hard because I had worked really hard to start that business up again, and get a following. And yeah, it's really hard to tell people like, sorry, like, and all these people, but I just need a cake. And I'm like, sorry.
So you transitioned from your cake business into when you moved to Pittsburgh and you brought it with?
No, well, I didn't because I had a 6-month-old. We had moved here for my ex-husband's work, and I was working. I was doing freelance recipe development, which worked really well when I had, and I couldn't afford childcare, so I did that for years. And I had my son, and then I did it for a long time, and then to the point where then finally, when they were both in school, I was like, okay, I'm really ready to do something different. And I tried to get a job as a pastry instructor at CCAC. And they didn't take me. I was like, oh, come on. So I finally was like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to start this business up again because I know how to do that. And then, I came across the program at Chatham, and it was amazing. I was so lucky. So that really helped. And that was right during the pandemic. But I was able to do that through the pandemic. Yeah, so there was a break for sure, but I kept all my stuff. I had all my equipment, but it took a while to find a kitchen to rent out of. I've been renting out of the East End Cooperative Ministry in East Liberty, which has been great. I got really lucky finding that too. So
that didn't start until 2020. I didn't realize. I thought you had been around for longer than that, and I just didn't.
It was brand new. I just but I really struggled with. Part of the problem was the hours that the kitchen I rented from was available, which is after like 1 or 2 in the afternoon because they feed the community. And then, of course, the weekends. But then I'm like, I've got kids. So like I have to pick them up at school. So that doesn't give me much time. And I didn't want to work evenings. So it's just really, I could never just work in the schedule that I needed to work in order to produce enough to make it a viable business. So, I would do farmers markets. I would do my holiday menus, did really well, but other than that, I didn't have a consistent, and I find that stressful. Like I need to have a consistent schedule. I need to know like what I'm going to be doing each week. So it just it never found its groove, I guess. I'm really hoping with having this new space, and another big part of why we're doing this as a cooperative is so that we can divide the responsibility and the risk, and then also like be able to achieve a quality of life, go on vacation, take turns working Sundays, that kind of thing. So that's really, really, really important to all three of us because it's just also being at the age that we're at too. Like Beth and I, like, it's just, there's only so, we can't work 100-hour weeks. Like, I don't want to work that. I don't want to do that.
You're going to put all the long hours on Chloe.
Well, yeah, she actually is pretty, she's up for that, but yeah. And, hopefully the people we hire will be, I don't want to say, yeah, that's ageist, but energetic and, ready to.
Is that reverse ageism? So you mentioned that you had some TV experience, some experience with, well, you were a hand model, of course, for Cooks Illustrated, but you had some other sort of multimedia experience with cooking. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so when I started at Cooks Illustrated, they had a TV show. It was called America's Test Kitchen. I'm sure people have heard of it. And I worked, the behind the scenes for that. We had to cook all the food and all the, it was pretty amazing, the amount of work that would go into it. At the level that we were doing it, we would make like 8 versions of each recipe so that we could swap it out at the right time so they didn't have to like wait for it on set. The food had to be perfect. So I did that for a few years, and then the director came up to me and was like, "You're going to be on TV." And I was like, "I don't want to do that." He's like, "Well, you don't have a choice." So yeah, I know. I was like, okay. So it was terrifying and oh my gosh. I still remember how my stomach felt the first episode that I filmed. So I did a few for a couple years, just not many, like a few episodes every year.
So wait, in what capacity were you on TV?
So I was I was one of the talent. So I would go up there with Chris Kimball and I would show him how to make a recipe.
So you were talking and demonstrating things.
And luckily they do edit because, that was it. I have done one live television thing and that was really difficult. That was a whole different ballgame. So editing is good. Editing is my friend. But yeah, so you just cook a recipe and you have to like have hair and makeup done, and it got easier, I think, the more you do it. And then I left, and I was working at home and I wasn't doing TV anymore. And then I moved here, and then Chris left Cooks Illustrated and started a new magazine called Milk Street, which is because the offices are based on Milk Street in Boston. It's really cool. It's the old granary building, and it's downtown. It's right near the aquarium. It's beautiful. So he brought me on to develop recipes, which have a much more like international slant. And I'm still developing recipes for them right now for their baking book. So, which I actually need to be finished with so I can open up a bakery. But I've been doing, he has a television show. It's called Milk Street TV. And so I've been a cast member on that since the beginning. And I think we're in our 7th season. Is it terrible? I can't remember. It's like yeah. So same thing, just go on. Sometimes I'll do a recipe by myself where I have to like talk to camera, which I find a lot harder than talking to Chris. And I've done it with Chris now so many years that it's like we just get up there and just banter away, and it's like I don't even notice that they're filming. So makes it, I think it comes across a lot more natural than when I'm like looking at a camera and I get all stiff, and it's hard for me to be conversational. And it's interesting because a lot of the other talent they have on the show don't have the same cooking background, but they are like 100% there on camera. Like they are so into it and they have this energy, and I'm like, where do they get that from?
That's great. So where do you do these? You said you're still doing them now.
Yeah, they film in Boston, usually in the spring, sometimes in the fall. Sometimes they do twice a year. Sometimes I was kind of they did not have me come back in the fall. So I'll be going back maybe in the spring, and hopefully things at the bakery will be in more of a groove. So I enjoy it. I mean, every year I think they're not going to have me back, but I really actually find that I enjoy it because it's so different and exciting. And I go for a week and it's like, then it's done. And I love jobs that are like project based like that. They're like, oh, you do a thing and then it's done. And then you're like, okay, moving on to the next thing. Like I just get that sense of completion, and yeah, so that's what that feels like to me.
Do you have to develop recipes ahead of time?
I get assigned to recipes. Back when I was doing a lot of recipe development for them, it was a lot of my own recipes, which made it really easy because I was really familiar. But now I get recipes that are developed by other people. So I test them at home and I vet them, and we have like script meetings. And so we'll go over, the script is not like you memorize word by word. The script is like an outline of like, this is how we're going to break down the recipe. And most of the time, I would say almost all of the time, I have no idea what Chris is going to talk to me about. So I just have to, know the recipe, the history of the recipe, and the recipe development. A lot of times the recipes are based on their travel segments, which of course I don't get to go to these places. So I have to like read those person's notes and like, yeah. And just kind of like, okay, this is where they went to some little woman's house and like up on this hill and like, whatever, found out this recipe. And so I just have to try to know my all the details so that I can talk about it when he throws questions at me.
That sounds like the fun part, though, is going to the person's house.
I know, I wish.
Oh
my gosh. No, I just...
Are you familiar with Sandor Katz?
No.
The fermentation guy? He did this series. There's a YouTube series, maybe 6 or 8 episodes of him going to China and discovering ferments. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Fermentation scares me.
Oh, really?
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I love, I guess the closest it's not even fermentation, but sourdough, but
that's legit fermentation.
It is, right? Yeah. So that's as far as it, but I think it's amazing that people do this fermentation stuff, and I'm like, I won't even make kimchi because I think I'm going to kill myself or somebody else.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'll eat it. I don't feel confident making it, but everybody has their specialties they do.
There's definitely like, I want to say a learning curve, but like a tolerance curve with fermentations.
Yes.
When you start in on it.
I did make kombucha for a little while. I was into that. And then I realized I was making more than I can consume. And it got out of control, and I just was like... And
it started getting alcoholic, and you started catching a buzz in the morning. And you're like,
I was just worried that my bottles were going to like explode in my fridge.
Oh, yeah.
That
happens for
sure.
Yeah,
it does, yeah.
Talk about your academic career and how you were a very scholarly kid. Mm-hmm. You went to pre-med.
Yeah. And then was a psychology degree is what I ended up with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other killer fish that we could talk about. Well, we won't. Because I'm more interested in the Is there anything in your background prior to that maybe influenced or set the tone for you to become this baker and creative cooking person that you are? What is there a better word for that?
I don't know.
Creative cooker, creative baker, I guess.
We call culinary artist.
Sorry. There is a term.
No, I don't know.
Is there what in your totally? You didn't make up that term. It's a legit term. But what in your background has led to you? You know, there may be like little seeds that were sprinkled.
I have thought about that. I did like to cook. I remember home ec. I remember like learning like how to make coffee cake, and we did like a fried rice recipe, and then I would go home and I would make that recipe over and over and over and over. You know, I mean, like Tolas Talk to Cookies, like over and over. So I had that sense of like, okay, I'm going to perfect this thing. And
so you tweaked it every time.
I'm not sure if I tweaked it. I think I just really liked knowing how to make something to the point of you could memorize the recipe and you could just make it over and over again.
Okay.
And you would get the result that you wanted.
But you weren't messing with the flavors at that point.
Oh, no. I was not. I was very much a recipe follower. I was like, no. And I liked it to come out the exact same way every time. But I didn't really become like an avid eater, like a adventurous eater, I guess. I was a super picky eater as a kid, like ridiculous. And it's so funny because my daughter's the same way. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, at least I know that, you know, there's hope because, you know, like no food can be mixed. No food can be touching. Like it was crazy. I didn't like mushrooms. Like I love mushrooms now. So, but I went to university up in Montreal at McGill. And that, I think being in Montreal was like the eye-opening of like, oh my gosh, the food and the markets and just being exposed to different things was just, that was a game changer for me.
I was wondering where the French influence came in, but enough said. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I've dug and found that nugget.
I did struggle with French, but the language. But yeah, so I think I liked working in the kitchen. I mean, I certainly wasn't obsessed with it. It wasn't like somebody would look at me at that time in my life and be like, oh, she's going to be a cook, you know. But yeah, became an eater first, definitely.
So you were a picky eater, but how did you get out of that?
I think it was I remember when I got to McGill and I just started.
So you were a picky eater until you went to Montreal. Okay, gotcha.
Very picky eater. Yeah. No, I was like a late food bloomer, I guess. But yeah, and I think I just started to really, I don't know, appreciate different flavors and foods. And I just started eating more and more and becoming more adventurous. And I remember traveling around Europe, you know, when I was 18. So I was, you know, eating different things there. And then I started going out to eat and like, ooh, like, you know, when I started working in restaurants, you know, then I was like going out to eat more and got into really fancy restaurants and yeah. Oh, I wanted to be a food critic too. That was another one of my jobs food writer, food critic. But
did you ever rate any?
I did, not reviews? for money. I did it more for free. Yeah.
Like on Yelp or something?
Not even. I don't think Yelp existed back then. But I have a little notebook and it's got all my notes from when I would eat at restaurants and review them and it cracks me up.
Oh, that is neat. Yep.
But now, like, it's the last thing I want to do. I just want to go and enjoy myself and enjoy the company I'm with. And like, I don't want to pick. I mean, I'll obviously say, well, this is really good, and you know, think about it for a second. But that's it. I'd be like, no, I just want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy someone else cooking for me. You know, I cook a lot more at home now though than I ever did, and certainly like with having a family, and I love it. Like I do not bake for fun, rarely, because I bake so much for work. And if I have if I'm not baking for work, then it takes a few weeks and all of a sudden I'm like, I think I want to bake some like, you know, cookies, or I want to bake some scones. But generally I'm like, no, I'd much rather make a savory recipe any day because that's what I like to eat. I do not like to eat sweets, which people find bizarre.
But you know the science of sweets, for sure.
I do, yeah. But if I'm going to eat, like, I love bread. Like, I can't get enough bread. But I don't have a sweet tooth. As I get older, it's, like, less and less. And I, like, almost don't like chocolate anymore. And as a kid, I was, like, chocolate freak. So it's interesting.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. I mean, who doesn't like chocolate?
Yeah.
I mean, some people don't, I guess.
I don't know. I think it's sometimes there's too much... additives in chocolate. So you're not actually eating chocolate.
Yeah.
Like when you have real cacao, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think everything has too much sugar in this country. Like everything.
Yeah.
And I do try to bake with, I don't know if I want to say less sugar, but with like more balance. So I try.
Do you remember what one of the first foods that changed your pickiness, that maybe surprised you?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm not sure because I feel like it was such a gradual thing. I do remember having real espresso for the first time, and it was in France, and like I just arrived, and my friend who had lived abroad and was like so worldly, and you know, she's like, this is the first thing we're gonna do, and she took me to this little coffee shop, and I we're tasting it, and I mean, I'd been a coffee drinker since I was like 12, right? But you know, the coffee back then, I remember we thought like Dunkin' Donuts coffee was like high end. My parents would be like, ooh, we got the Dunkin' Donuts. It's like, oh my God. But yeah, so I started like, I think I remember taking a sip like straight up, and I thought I was going to die. I was like, ah. And then I remember putting in like, I think it was like 50% sugar. And I was like, I don't know if I can drink this. But yeah, I definitely have that very vivid memory of having espresso for the first time. Do you remember my first oyster too? I remember the first time I had sushi too, and both times I definitely had to have a couple drinks in me before being able to do that.
You to like get up your courage.
Yep.
Are you an adventurous person otherwise? Like, do you do zip lines? Have you ever jumped out of a plane?
No.
Have you ever like?
Well, I have like a fear of heights, so no on both those things. But I started playing soccer in my early 40s, and I find that to be very exciting. You know, because sometimes it can get a little bit physical, and that's never been the kind of, like, I always did more like individual activities. Like I ran a marathon once, running, and I did a lot of biking and that kind of thing. So not used to people like coming into my space and like bumping into me or like getting smacked by the ball or like, so, but I love it. It's really exciting, and it's a really fun way to exercise. And I've met this amazing group of women through it. So I would say that has been something very different than I've done, and kind of feeds into that, need for excitement, I guess. But yeah, I don't do anything crazy, dangerous, or that I think is dangerous.
So you've had this sort of even keel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've always liked to travel, and I find that adventurous, but not in the sense of like, I'm not a thrill seeker, I guess. Unless you find, opening a bakery is thrilling. I've learned that. So I just said to somebody, I said, I don't think I'm ever going to do this ever again. This is it. This is the one-time deal.
So let's talk more about the bakery. So that's coming up. I don't know when you're expecting to open.
We really, really, really want to be open by the end of the year, but we're also really preparing ourselves to not be open. So it's difficult. It's that unknown, I think, has been one of the biggest struggles for me. I like to get things done. I like to be like, boom, 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 like, okay, what next? What are we doing? But let's get this done. Because again, I like that sense of completion. And unfortunately, there's just so many moving parts, and there's so many things contingent on other things, and the permitting and all of the, it's just so much out of our control that you just sometimes have to get in that, for me, a very uncomfortable space of just not being in control all the time. But things are moving. Things are definitely moving, and we are making progress. And we are, just finding the space alone, I feel really fortunate because we found it pretty quickly, and I'm so excited about it. It's in Garfield, which is a neighborhood we really wanted to be in. We wanted to be an underserved neighborhood. And I think a lot of really exciting things are happening in Garfield. And I also love that it's sort of centrally located in the city. Like, I've loved being in East Liberty for that reason, so that you're sort of close to all the different neighborhoods. So yeah, we found this amazing space. It had a restaurant, but it wasn't a fully functioning restaurant. So it has a walk-in, which is great. So it's sort of set up. So we're in the demolition phase and reconstruction phase, I guess. So there isn't a ton of work to do, but the challenge for us was the space was a little smaller than we wanted in order to run both a bakery and a teaching space. And so what we had to get really, really, really creative with how we designed our bakery so that it converts. So like by day it's bakery, and then it converts to a teaching kitchen. So everything is movable. Yeah, so that took a little bit of thinking outside the box to make that work. And I think we've landed on a really good solution. I'm really excited to see it in real life, not just on our, designs. But yeah, so we just got our compliance letter from the health department today. So that is like, such a huge
congratulations.
Really, thank you. And I think we knew we were going to get it, but just to hear it and see it, I'm like, oh, so that's exciting. So that means we can totally start like going gung-ho with the construction. And we have most of the equipment. We just need a few items of equipment. I really hope once things start to fall into place, it'll just, because we've done the back end research. We've been doing this for over a year, planning this. So I'm hoping things will just kind of go boom, 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 boom. And then we'll be like, oh my God, it's time to open. But we decided we're going to sign up for the Bloomfield Winter Market just in case, so that we have an avenue to sell. And I still have my rental kitchen space, because at some point Chloe's kitchen is going to have to get broken down and moved. But I think we can, hopefully that'll be a pretty quick 2-week process. But then we have to have them come in and inspect. So, if we don't do it by the end of the year, we're still going to be doing things and figuring it out and doing pop-ups. And you have to be creative, and it's frustrating. But I think that's the way for all the food businesses, unfortunately. I wish they made it easier for us. But
who do you mean they?
The city. Mm-hmm. It's just, the permitting, it's just all difficult. Yeah. And I don't feel like they try to make it easy especially for small businesses. And it's frustrating.
I fought for that for 9 years. So.
Yeah, no, I believe you. It's every small business owner I've talked to is so frustrated. And unfortunately, it's just like, well, that's just the way it is. That's what we have to put up with. But it's like, I don't understand why the city wouldn't want to support all of this happening, all of this economic growth and all of these jobs. And it's just, so that part has been a bummer. But, I'm hoping, we'll get to the other side of it, and maybe we can help the next person along, right?
Well, at least your space was zoned for business, yeah?
It's business, yeah, but we still have to do a change of use, because apparently restaurant isn't the same thing as bakery. And yeah, so I have to go through a whole rezoning process, and it's ridiculous. I know, it's ridiculous. And we could not find, I don't think they had a certificate of occupancy, because I can't find it on record for the business that was there. And it was recent, it was like 2018, and there's no record anywhere. And then other small things, like they have these cool garage doors that open, right? And that was part of the selling point. They have these air screens, and it's great. You can have it open. Well, now the city's like, oh, no, we've changed that. And now you have to have screens. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like how did it operate before? And they're like, oh, well, now there are these new ordinances because everybody's been doing this open air dining. And so now we're cracking down. So we have to have like ugly screens put up. And I'm like, gosh. Right? And I'm like, I'm just not going to let this bother me. Like, this is just, okay. It's ridiculous though. It's still going to be a great space, and we're going to make it work. And we have these great decks outside, and working with this great designer, and he's got these ideas of how to build like outdoor shelter, and then have like keep it warm, and it's just going to be the coolest. Yeah, it's going to be cool. We're going to have lots of great events.
Even if you open January, February, it's still going to be an outdoor space that you
well, we haven't built that yet. That'll be next year for sure. No, we're going to work on the inside first, but yeah, that's like phase 2. But it'll be a really cool space. Yeah. And I love that we have that outside to work with, and there's lots of room to landscape, and we're going to plant all of these like edible plants and just incorporate that into part of our teaching program too. So, and then there's a concrete pad where it used to be a barbecue place. So it used to be a spork pit. And so they had these 2 huge smokers outside. And so we have this like awesome concrete pad. And I was like, you guys, we got to get a grant, and we're going to build like a wood-fired pizza oven, bread oven, and like we could do community bakes. Like, it's just, I get so excited. But again, that's probably down the road.
This has been really fantastic. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about, mention?
I don't know. I'm not the best. I don't really love talking about myself, so
You've done a very good job.
Am I? For someone who doesn't like it.
You've done an amazing job. I think we've gotten a lot of insight about you.
Good.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Bowl and Spoon is written, produced, and hosted by me, Shelley Danko Day. Copy editing by Carolyn Ristow, details review. Original theme song was written and performed by Paul Labrise and Friends. You can listen to With Bowl and Spoon anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow us and send us questions or messages on Facebook and Instagram or on our website, withbowlandspoon.com. Thanks for listening.